This week, certainly not a lesson, just a general debate around the South Sydney Rabbitohs. They're extremely highly owned. All the blokes I just mentioned. Latrell Mitchell, Alex Johnston, Campbell Graham, Cody Walker, Cam Murray, Kieran Koloamatangi, Tyrone Munro have the bye next week. You add in popular players like anyone who's got multiple nuffs in their team, Samuela Fainu, Jack Howarth, Franklin Pele. There's a few other, like Ty Munro's one of them if he doesn't play. Do your numbers next week because it's pretty grim. And whether you want to hold Bunnies for round 27 or not against the Roosters, I think people are going to be forced to trade them. So people, again, particularly people in preliminary finals, might be looking to cull some of them early. I've spoken to people who are looking at getting rid of one or two of them early this week ahead of next week and that buy. So I just want to have a chat about them and try and help people out and have a chat with you about the ones that we'd prioritise selling and the ones that we definitely wouldn't sell. Value will be taken into consideration. So, of course, Tyrone Munro would be the top of this list because he's out of the 17 at the moment, but he's also only worth $319K. So there's every chance you can't really move him to anyone good. So, mate, we'll go from the top and then I'll do a bit of an order of who I think are the priority sells. This is so up to context and how your side's placed, how many trades you've got, how much money, etc. Like someone might have one trade left and have $500K in the bank. You can go Munro to whoever you want.
Yeah.
Another team might have one trade left and have $100 in the bank. You can't do anything with Ty Munro.
All right, well, let's start there. I've got 4 trades left coming into this week. I know what one of them's going to be. So I've got 3 trades left and $232K when I'm making this decision. What's your situation?
3 trades left, $114K in the bank. That's it.
Okay. So the South Sydney players I have got Walker, Campbell Graham, Ty Munro, and Latrell. So I've only got those 4. Who have you got?
I've got 5. I've got Latrell, Ty Munro, Alex Johnston, Cody Walker, Cam Murray. So I don't need to move this week, but next week. Look, I'm pretty tempted to hold my 3 trades. I'm happy with my 17 this week. We get to trade soon, but if shit hits the fan next week, I would like to have 2 up the sleeve for it. Ideally, use just one of them on a Bunnies player, provided I can field a decent 17, and then maybe have 2 in store for the final round. But happy to use 2 next week. But next week's going to be very problematic for a lot of teams.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the one trade I am using, I'm trading Hopgood. As I said, I'm trading Hopgood because I either have to trade him now or I have to trade him in round 27. And because of restings coming, I want to get rid of Hopgood now. Because I think you're going to need those 2 trades in the last week, and I agree with you. I'm going to save 2 for then. South Sydney, though, with the bye next week, I would advise that everyone listening to the podcast, watching on YouTube right now, go to your team right now and pretend like South Sydney have the bye right now. Have a look at what your team looks like. So I went through and did it with mine. I'm going to have 17 players. I'm going to have a strong 17. My bench in that situation would be Tapane, Bateman, Nico Hines, and the guy I'm trading in this week, which we'll reveal soon. So I'm okay with it, but that's assuming there's no more injuries, no more suspensions.
Yeah.
Nothing else happens between now and then.
Yeah, including Nuffs, I'd have 8 out plus Piakura, who, well, he's on the bye this week, so kind of, but he played off the bench for like 30 minutes last week. So that's where I'm like, as much as I want a certain someone, we'll get to him shortly, but I can see myself having to use 2 trades next week.
Are you going to hold on to Piakura now? It's just something like, obviously we're getting to the back end of this season. You can even just see in the betting markets that there are starting to be some wide open markets as far as AEs and everything go. Are you starting to get a little bit nervous that he could cost you?
It's all so play it by ear. I need to see how my side's looking next week because if we get to next week and there's not too much damage and I can field a decent 17, well, I might look to flip Piakura.
Yep.
Ditto in round 27, huge chance of selling him because there's a bit of value about him. I want to trade him, but I said I've got 5 bunnies, so I need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
I definitely think he's a trade before he's break-even 60, so even if he does miss, obviously misses this week, if he plays next week and plays limited minutes, he's not going to drop too much, but 476K, there's a bit of value there if you want to do something with him. Like,
is he at 470K?
476.
Okay.
Yeah, so I could move, and we'll be able to do the same next week, him to, say, Eli Katoa really easily.
Yeah.
Or there was another back rower this week as a 1-week matchup, Isaiah Papali'i. You wouldn't look to bring him in, but I like the Eli Katoa play. It would have cost me about 35, 40K or something. So could do, but I said this week isn't my issue. I could strengthen my team slightly, but next week's going to be the concern.
All right. So do you want to go through these 5 or 6 bunnies? You take it away.
Yeah, we'll have a general chat, mate, and then apply this to your own situation. So, because everyone's different. The Latrell Mitchell, 719K. He looks an obvious hold if you can. The opportunity I see, though, is potentially shifting to Scott Drinkwater as a pod next week. Now, I wouldn't trade Trell this week, but next week on the bye, plenty of value. If you can go him to Scotty Drinkwater, who has the Dolphins at Suncorp, I believe it is, potential there. But the Trell, all in all, I think he's one that ideally you want to hold.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to say on these Bunnies boys is, yes, they're out this, next week. Fuck, if we get to round 27 and there's mass restings, these boys are all playing the Sydney Roosters. They're going to play no matter what. So I think that is something people need to keep in mind, that if you use all your trades so that you do well in round 26 and you get rid of these Bunnies and you get to round 27 and there's mass restings and people that didn't sell their Bunnies have got Latrell, Cody, these sort of guys, I think it's something that people need to really consider as well, which is why I'm probably not planning on selling too many of these Bunnies. I think I'm going to hold them. Latrell, I will definitely be holding. If I had the ability to go to Drinky, it's tempting, but I still think I'd be holding Latrell for that Roosters matchup.
Why do you not have the ability to?
Just because I probably could, to be fair, but there's other moves I want to make. Yeah.
Agreed. I think he's a hold. Alex Johnson, 693K. Knights' defence is quite good, to be fair, but there are opportunities on their wings. He'll be coming up against Dom
Hastings, Gagai, Young, which there's been problems there, and Hastings on 1 foot at the moment too.
Hastings or Gamble?
Hastings is on the right.
Hastings on the right. Yeah, so I like the matchup. I do.
I like it too. I don't have AJ, but yeah, he's scary.
So the thing there is the value. So 693K. So if we're talking next week, I do think he is a sell prospect. Campbell Graham, you are an owner, 558K.
Yep.
He was a bit better last week, but not been a great 3 rounds for him.
Has not been a good 3 rounds yet.
Which makes it a little bit more difficult because he has dropped a ton of value. What are your thoughts around him?
Another one that I will be holding. The last few weeks haven't been sensational. I mean, the last 2 weeks, 38, 39 in base. He's, I think in the Tigers and the Sharks game, he's got over the line twice, just hasn't got the fucking ball down. So he's close. I'm going to be holding Campbell Graham. I think as well, I've got to factor into it that he is a lot less owned than those other guys. So he's my pod sort of guy. I'm going to be holding Campbell Graham. I won't be selling him. And he's probably not the one I'd be moving on if I was other people. I just think, fuck, at this time of the year when you got kangaroos that are guns like Campbell Graham, that are pods, I think you hold them.
Yeah. I agree. I think at the value as well. Cody Walker, 610K. Sound like a broken record.
Well, wasn't it interesting too, just on Campbell Graham before we move off, like we spoke last week and I said, fuck, I reckon if Campbell can just score more tries than AJ Bubba. They scored exactly 72 and AJ scored 2 tries. Campbell scored 1.
There you go.
It feels like that's going to be the exact story, I reckon.
Always.
Yeah.
Cody Walker, 610K. Hasn't set the world alight, but it's coming, isn't it? The Bunnies were terrible last weekend. He still scored 81. He also had there were a couple down that left edge where he put AJ away. I think the Latrell's was the one that went backwards and Cody's might have been obviously forward, but there were so many opportunities. Said they were terrible and he scored 81. So Cody won't be leaving my team.
Cody is one that there was a moment there on the weekend when I was watching Cam Munster and just the amount of space he had in front of him against Canberra, I was going, oh my God, for the first time he's actually scaring me. Scored a good individual try. They scored 48 points. Scored 87, which is a good score, don't get me wrong. But even that, I'm like, fuck. If that was, a Turbo or a Cleary playing in that game, you'd like to think they'd probably go 100 plus. So I'm
150 plus in a 48-4 win or whatever it was.
Right. Yeah. So
he
once
did
again,
nothing else in it really.
He did nothing else. Yeah. And I think these games coming up, Dragons, Gold Coast, I personally reckon Cam Munster will go, fuck, I'm putting the feet up and I've got my eyes on Brisbane in 2 weeks' time.
He's such a fascinating one, because the matchups are brilliant. But for whatever reason, Munster, I love if someone has the time and can be asked to do it. Go and get his average against top 8 and bottom 8 sides the last even 5 years. If you got the data to do it, it'd be so fascinating.
But this is the beauty about Munster. He's also just the most honest Supercoach player you could ever find. He's exactly who he tells you he is. You know exactly what's going to happen. We've been saying it for years. We've never been wrong. He's going to average 75 on the fucking nose every single year. What is he this year? 73. Shock me. He's just going to do it every single season. You have a look over the last few years. His averages since 2019, 69, 70, 74, 81, 73. Like, within 10 the entire time.
All that being said, it's still a mouth-watering contest with the Dragons for him.
It is, yeah. But it's...
Yeah, we said it before.
Rinse and repeat. So I think Cody will stay in my team.
Yeah. I'll be holding Cody. Cam Murray, 627K. Here's what he is. He had a down week last week, which was disappointing for me after Hopgood went low, but he'll plug away. He'll play big minutes this weekend, round 27. He's a sell candidate. The issue with Murray is I think if you've got Jules and you could get in like a gun CT dub with a big matchup or another key position, at 2RF, I don't really see where you move.
Yeah, I don't. Even, mate, like the player that I'm bringing in this week, I probably wouldn't move Murray to him. I'm okay to move Hopgood to him because Hopgood is changing positions and his team's going like a fucking busted and whatnot. But Murray, I think you're going very like for like there.
You add in with the Bunnies and because they're playing for a top 8 spot, like I think, and they're still short on middles.
Yeah.
He needs to play good minutes.
And once again, the big carrot, Cam Murray, he's not going to fuck around against the Roosters. No. He's going to play big minutes. He's going to go berserk there.
Keon Clowe-Matangi, 529K. He's one that I think is a sell prospect, and a lot are moving on. He'll be pretty close to the top of this list when I get to an order very shortly. The issue again, he's 529K. There's not a lot of value there, so you're probably looking at, depending on how much money you've got in your bank, an Eli Katoa move.
He's the one that I'd be moving on this list. He's the one I'd be moving on. The next guy on the list, if he was just a little bit more expensive, it's probably a different conversation.
He just needed time.
Just needed one more
game just to propel him up to like late 3s, potentially 400 would have been gold.
Well, that's like if I sort of worked it out. So if Munro would have played one more game, I could have pushed this week a Munro to DWZ. But he's just that one game that he's played short. So
he's got a negative 38 break even with a score of 53. If he plays this week, he'd make 78K.
Yeah.
Imagine if he played this week and scored 80 or 90.
I hope he does.
He'd go like 440, 450K potentially. Oh, just need one more game.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the list I've put together, it's a pretty general list, but Ty Munro is number 1. As it stands, he's not in their 17. He's not doing much for you. So he's the one you look to move on. Also probably need money to move him to someone good. Like, I haven't had a good look through the list because I'm not looking at selling bunnies this week, but I don't know if there's anyone sub 500K with any good matchups you could potentially go towards. Number 2 is Keon Clowe-Matangi. I think he probably picks himself. Number 3, I've got Cam Murray. That is based on if you have Jules. Like if you've got, as I just mentioned, Jules CT dub or something, and you could bring in a high upside CT dub. If you don't, my side doesn't. Yep. I've got him down at number 5. Alex Johnston I've got at number 4. That is due largely to his value. He's about 140, 150K more than Campbell Graham. AJ, they're all missing next week, but you could take a bit of a go there. If the Bunnies don't show up again this weekend, the Knights at home, put it to them and that defence holds up. 5, Campbell Graham, just not a ton of value in him anymore, so he becomes a bit of a tricky sell. 6, Latrell. If you want to go that super pod play of Scott Drinkwater, you could propel him higher, but bold. And number 7, Cody Walker.
Just having a look, mate, as you said, like if you were to move Ty Munro on, like for example, I've got 220K sitting in my bench, which I would say is pretty high. Would that be fair? I don't think many people would have more than 220K.
Bloody oath.
So I've got 551K.
Yeah.
Right? So I've got 550 to work with. I think there's a number of guys that are probably just above that mark that if you've got more money than me, you might be in the range of getting. I think a guy like Dom Young's appealing, the way that that guy in Newcastle's going at the moment. He's 589K. So, I mean, he's out of my price range. You'd have to have a lot of bicky sitting there to be able to get to him. Mate, the one that I think is interesting He's found form again over the last few weeks. I know people have probably traded him in 4 times. Mulitalo's at 475. If you think the Sharkies have found some
we
form.
went through the most traded in and out this week on the Playbook potty last night, and I think it was about the 13th most traded in, and I said, they've got some awkward matchups. So they've got the Cowboys up there, the Knights, the Raiders. Too many low scores in him. Had a bit of a niggle last week. And I was like, I don't like it. I still don't like it that much. But when you look at this situation of Ty Munro, if there's not many other options, yeah.
Sipatalakai, 524K as well. A little bit more expensive.
Connor Tracy, your boy.
Yeah, I threw up Connor Tracy to Tim earlier, and he scored well the last few weeks. I think 48 and 58 along those marks, but he did have a try in that. So, but a big pod play there, mate. Outside of that, the other one that I think is reasonably appealing is Nick Meaney, but you just don't know what his next few weeks looks like.
Cheeky little Ty Munro to Meaney head-to-head play this week could be a goer.
Could be nice. Yeah,
bit risky for next week, but. Yeah.
If you're looking for just a slice of that Melbourne Storm backline, Remus Smith, very cheap at the moment, 369.
Xavier Coates is also very cheap if you're looking at a 1 week play.
The other one, and your team.
They've got.
Yeah.
Who do we say they've got next week? The Titans in Melbourne.
Yeah.
So for head-to-head players, you can get prelim and grand final if you get there. So
the other one that I think could be interesting, but you're taking a big gamble, depending on when Isaac Tungo does return, Tyrone Peachy at 480K. Let's say Isaac Tungo doesn't return next week. You're getting him this game this weekend against the Gold Coast Titans. You're getting him next weekend, Battle of the West against Parramatta at Penrith. If Isaac Tungo, for whatever reason, doesn't return to week 1 of finals, even if Isaac Tungo does return, I'm very confident Peachy starts in the centres somewhere against the Cowboys in round 27 because they will be resting. So
you could get 2 out of 3 starts.
You could get 2 games for Peach there.
The issue would be you need him. We'll need him next week.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, if it doesn't look like Ty Munro is going to play round 27, you may be better off with Peachy, having him 2 out of 3 games as a pod play there.
As long as you've got 17 next week.
As long as you've got 17, yeah. Yeah. But for all you know, Peach could play next week. That might be the week that they decide, hey, let's give To'o a spell. Let's give Edwards a spell. Then they move guys around and Peach is straight in. So there's a lot of opportunity for Peach to get into that side next week. Maybe the last one I'll throw at you, which I can just afford. Playing some really good footy the last few weeks. I know that we hate saying his name in Supercoach. Billy Smith.
Oh, can you imagine?
Man, I've had him in draft the last few weeks. He's been absolutely killing it, Billy Smith.
He's playing good. He's not going to come up against Valence Tafade every week, who he schooled last week. So he'll be left edge. He'll be coming up against Penasini this week.
Yep.
Do we think Dylan Brown will probably stay left side and Nasi will go right, won't he?
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay, so it's still a decent edge. Not for me, but, mate, you do you.
The other one that I just saw there that I thought, I wouldn't do it myself, but fuck, if you're all in on this Warriors backline, Rocco Berry at 411K.
On that gun edge, going at Manly's real weak left edge. Schuster goes back to the back row. Arthur comes in.
He's going to need to score tries, but fuck, if you're running with Sean Johnson, DWZ, Chance,
why not? Go
what have you got to lose? It could be if he has a big game, like that would be if he has a big game, those other 3 having big games, that could dagger us straight away.
It's concerning.
Very concerning, very worrying, yeah. So, and obviously the Warriors, they haven't been super impressive the last 2 weeks, but they're now starting to get all those troops back and all the guys coming back into the side. So it could all turn very quickly, and all of a sudden, Rocco Berry, I don't know, could be a little bit appealing there. But yeah, I think it is well worth considering, as Tim suggested. Have a look through your team, have a look at how you match up with the South Sydney Rabbitohs when they are out next week, and just keep in mind that round 27 as well.
Next 2 weeks are going to be so exciting and terrifying. We could afford, most teams could afford a sneaky out here or there from team lists.
Yep.
This week and recent weeks. The next 2 weeks, anything that comes out unsuspecting is going to be a killer.
Can I ask you this, Timmy? If you could buy any CTW right now regardless of money, who's the one guy you don't have that you want? Is it DWZ or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want.
What's DWZ at?
He's become quite affordable. He's about 650 odd now. Might even be less. Don't be a dick.
It's very tempting. It is
634K.